Hi guys, we're looking at Satisfied Mind today by Buckley. This was a request from Shane through Patreon. It's a pretty improvised tune, so we're going to look at the intro and we're going to look at the verse and talk about kind of the different improvisations he takes. We'll go through that intro and then just through that verse, just things you can play around with and try and make it your own. Okay, so let's go for a close-up and we'll check it out. Okay guys, so for the intro, all the tabs are on my Patreon page if you want to follow along. We're going to start on this kind of A chord, 5, 6, 7, B, G, D. And we're just going to pick those out, or do a little strum, if you prefer. Then we're going to play the A string, and kind of arpeggio, so just walk through. Back to the bass A. And then we're going to play our 3 strings together. And then hammer on with your ring finger so that you kind of get in a D chord. Okay? If you find that too difficult, you can always just do with the little finger into the 7th fret of the G. It's not quite the same, but it's the same idea. And then just to finish that phrase, we're going to pick the A string again, and then pick our A chord together. So that first little bit. Okay, then we're going to play the A string again, pick out that A chord, and then come back to this E over G sharp triad, which is our 5th fret of the B string with our middle finger. 4th fret of the G, first finger, then 6th fret of the D, ring finger. You can also add in the 7th fret of the A string if you want with your little finger. So we're going to play the open A, then the A chord, and then we're going to jump to this E over G sharp. Then we're going to pick that E over G sharp and slide it back to D over F sharp, same shape, back 2 frets. Then we are going to add in the little finger, 5th fret here. We're going to play A string, D string, G string. And not quite even, as I said before, it's all slightly improvised, so it doesn't matter too much, but it sounds better if you slightly swing it. And then to end that phrase, we pick the open A, slide into the 7th fret of the D, and then we pick the 6th fret, 5th fret of that A chord. So that little bit. Then we have one of these really classic kind of Hendrixy licks. We're going to pick out the open A, and then we're going to play the D and the G string together and hammer onto the 7th fret of the G with our little finger. Play 7, 6, 7, 6, 7 on the D to finish. Okay. Then we come into this little finger picking pattern on the A. So we're going to go arpeggio down, then G, then D twice. 4 swing the nut. Come back to the E over G sharp, same chord. We're going to just walk up the arpeggio twice, so 6, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5. Then we play D, G, D strings. So those two together. Slide into that D chord, same shape. Then nice and slow we pick the G string, D string, B string. Then into our first little lick, which is sliding into the 5th fret of the B string, 7th fret of the G, pick the 5th fret of the E, hammer on 5 to 7 on the B, so back to 5 on the B, 7 on the D. Pick the open A, we're back in our D chord, D string, and then either a strum or a pick, and we're going to come into this little hammer on again, so we get the D, and then we have 3 strums on the D, back to the A, 3 strums, down, up, down. Then we have this little walk up. So what that is, it's the A. Then we come to our B minor triad, so the 9th fret of the D string, 7th fret of the B and G. Same shape, move it up 2 frets, 9s and 11. And then that same first shape, we got our D, 10, 11, 12, B, G, D to finish. Bass pick, if you can get your thumb over. Then up, down. Then we come back to that same shape we had on the E for our A. Thumb picks the 9, up strum. Pick the bass again, up, down. Then the last one on B, we're going to go 7, same shape. Same shape as we had before at the 7 with the B minor. Thumb now picks the bass and then up, down. So I'll just play through that bit really slow from the walk up. Once more. Next lick. So that, we start on the 7th fret of the G, we slide to the 8, slide back, and then we do a quarter step bend, or a half step bend if you want, on the 5th fret with your first finger. Pick the 7th fret of the D's, really bluesy lick that. And then we pick the 8th fret of the B and bend it to 10. So that first half. Then we pick the 7th fret of the G, quick bend up, release the bend and pull off to 5. Then play the 7 on the D. Then we're taking 6 on the kind of our A shape, but we're not playing the 5th fret of the B if you don't want. We're going to do 2 hammer-ons to the 7th fret of the G, and then we're going to hammer on, we're going to have bar on the 5th fret and hammer on to 6 and 7. All the way through the lick. Then we play the bass, 5th fret, then a little strum of the A chord. slide into a power chord, sorry, an octave, not power chord. We're sliding into the 4th fret of the A, 6th fret of the D. Same shape, 7 and 9. Then we're sliding into an E7. Ring finger's going to slide into the 7th fret of the A. Then we're going to have 6th fret of the D, 7th fret of the G. And we're going to pick the D string, G string, D string, A string, G string. Then play the chord. Okay, then we come to the just a normal D chord, and we pick through it. We're going to go D string, G, B, E, back to B, back to G, just arpeggio. Little bit of swing, back to those octaves, 7 and 5, or 5 and 7, 6 and 4, 4 and 2, and then we're into an A chord. So that little bit from the A. And the last bit, scroll my tab down. We're going to take an A chord, play the A string, then D string, B string, G, D, G. And this is all nice and swingy. Then we slide into the 4th fret with our middle finger of the D, open G, 3rd fret of the B, back to the open G, D, B. Come up to the 2 5s, same strings. We're going to pick the open A first, G then B, back to G, D then B. So we'll just go through that bit because then the pattern changes. Open A, then we're going to play 9th fret of the D, 8th fret of the B, and we're just going to pick D then B, and end on the D. So A, then pick the open A again, move that shape up 2 frets. This time slide 11 to 12 at the end of that, pick 12th of the B, and then come back to 9 and 8. And nearly at the end, we're just going to pick through D, G, B. On the 3rd time round, you slide back to the 7th fret. 7th fret of the D, open G, 7th fret of the B. And then pick 2 5s, G and B, and then bend them up to finish. Okay, so that picking pattern at the end. Okay, so for the verse, we're in 3 time. You can either strum it, sort of a 1, 2, and 3, and, or pick it in the same kind of pattern, 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and. As I say, it's very improvised, so it's kind of how you want to do it. I can't talk properly. I prefer personally the strumming versions that he does, but as I say, have a little play around with what you like. He starts off by singing, So it'll be how many, then we hit the D, back to A. So 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3. Then we have this E over G sharp chord that we had in the intro, down to the D over F sharp, and then we come to 4 bars of A. Normally on this first 4 bars of A, this is where we start to get a bit of the improvisation. He does that Hendrix one from the intro. Okay, then we come up to an E, same sort of thing, so we've done start singing still on those A's, the wealthiest person, which I think is the wrong lyric, but it works. Then we go to E7, and then we come over to D over F sharp again, but a different voicing. We're going to bar the 7th fret with our first finger, and then we're going to play the 9th fret of the A string with our ring finger. 2 bars of that, back to A, all the way out. Sometimes on this A, he does a improvised, like say he plays an A blues, so it's the A minor pentatonic scale. So you can have a kind of come out of that D over F sharp. And have a play around within that scale. That's where he does most of his licks. And then the last main kind of improvised thing that he does is a really nice rundown on that D over F sharp. So if we came from the E, it kind of does the opposite of that build up we did in the intro. We start on the D, the little triad, 10, 11, 12, B, G, D. Come back to C sharp minor triad, which is 9th fret of the B and the G, and then 11th fret of the D. Bring that back 2 frets, B minor, and then A. So he uses that over that second bar of D over F sharp. And then we're into the A's. Okay, that's the verse, really. It just repeats around and around, and he varies those improvisations on the A. The rest of it stays the same. The only bit that changes is we have that little bridge where he sings about satisfied mind, which is the same as the verse apart from the very first line. We start on a D, then we come up to an E, and then back to 2 bars of D, and just normal D. Then we're into the A's, and everything's as it was before. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed that lesson. You can check out my other Jeff Buckley lessons in this playlist here, or check out another one, and I'll see you very soon around the channel.